welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 102. And the title of today's episode is The Economic Collapse Has Been Contained. The Fed will start tapering. And we're going to get into the economic collapse news and what's going on all over the world. Just before I start, I just want to welcome a lot of new people that have been signing up and subscribing to the YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can come over to the x22report.com site, and every day I update the Sentinel alerts. And if you look up top on the site, you'll see a little tab that says Sentinel alerts. Just click on that, and that will bring you to the current Sentinel alerts, and then I have archive ones under that. And I also just updated the inflation-deflation tab. And this is where I'm tracking like gas, milk, ice cream, butter, coffee, and watching the prices move up or down. And it looks like milk has moved up. Before it was at $3.75, and this is where I live, and now it has moved up to $3.85. All the rest have been constant, and they haven't really moved, except for gas. Gas has moved up, and actually we're going to see gas move up even more since all the problems in Egypt and the Suez Canal, and they're all worried. Oil per barrel is already up to 103, so in the next couple of weeks we're going to see gas rise if this keeps up. Now, what I found very interesting is that gold has been smacked down today, and on the People I put two graphs that looked back at gold and back to 2008 before the crash. When Ben Bernanke was basically saying the Fed does not forecast a recession in the near future. He also said that the subprime market was contained. He doesn't see a housing bubble. He doesn't see anything, basically. The guy that's supposed to be running the entire monetary system, he doesn't see anything going on whatsoever. That's basically what he tells all the people that are sleeping, and everyone just goes about their day, and they they're like, okay, everything is fine because everything looks good. And this is why people were so shocked in 2008, because when the head person that has nothing to do with the United States government, first of all, comes out, but many people don't know that, comes out and says they do not forecast a recession in the near future, and he's saying this in the year that the recession started. You have to start to think. But anyhow, I put these two graphs on the People. It's under the tab. If you go up to the x22report.com site, up top it says the People, and then it's under financial, and it's V 26,000 August gold contracts, and same for silver contracts. I'll put the link on the report that I'm doing here today on the page. But I put two graphs here, and these graphs are from Kitco, and this is in August of 2008. And what did gold do at that time? Gold was at around $918 August 1st. By August 19th, it was smacked down to around $790. And then it started moving up a little bit again, and it got all the way back up to $880. And in October, around the 23rd, it was smacked down from the height of $900 in October all the way down to $720. So we're seeing the same type of thing. The gold is smacked down, it rises up again. Gold is smacked down, and we saw this back in 2008, right before the crash happened. We're seeing it now. We're seeing the same thing reoccurring, and basically this is a sure sign that the collapse is headed toward us quicker than anyone thinks. And we'll get into why I think this and what Goldman Sachs has said today. But let's get into the economic collapse news today. And the payroll report came out today, and they're saying 195,000, much higher than expected, but underemployment rate soars to 14.3%. Again, we're going to have to use common sense with all of this because the news likes to put spins or leave out things, and people don't realize that the unemployment calculation has completely changed, that the gauge of gauging how many employed people has changed from 150,000 to 80,000. And when you actually look at the numbers and you don't look at the surface of what they're saying, you dig through it and you get through all the fluff and all the other garbage that they give you, you see real things. You see things like part-time jobs are on the rise. Full employment is on the decline. Where are these jobs being fulfilled? Hospitality, waiters, waitresses, bartenders, these type of jobs are being created. And this article from Zero Hedge goes on to say that basically the household survey reported that part-time jobs soared by 360,000 to 28 million, an all-time record high. Full-time jobs down 240,000. And looking back at the entire year, so far in 2013, just 130,000 full-time jobs have been added, offset by a whopping 557,000 part-time jobs. So what we're seeing now is all these people who've been in positions and went to college, got their degree, sat in the gray cube or the gray office, and typed up emails and sent them back and forth to everyone. These people who are being laid off now from IBM, from financial institutions, from other places, and even people who are being laid off from retail basically cannot find a full-time job. Now, some of them find consulting work. Basically, that is a hourly, usually, position. You get no benefits, no retirement, and you're on your own, basically, until they end the contract. Other people have to take 1 or 2 or 3 part-time jobs to make up the difference if they can. If they can't, they're underemployed. Or they take a position where they were making, let's just throw out a number, $80,000 a year, and now they're making $50,000 trying to make ends meet. And we can see, if we look through all this, that, and we discussed this in, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago in the episode, where people's disposable income is declining. Now, this all makes sense when you look through all this garbage, because if people are underemployed, have many part-time jobs, and the unemployment rate is really going up, people have less to spend. I mean, it all makes sense if you look at this. And what we're seeing is all these full-time jobs are being replaced by part-time jobs, but when you look at the unemployment calculation, it just counts people as employed. And that's all they're doing. They're just saying they don't care the quality of job they have. So if you were making $80,000 and you have a job at Home Depot, and that's one job, and then you also have another job part-time, let's say as someone working in another retail type of store, you have 2 part-time jobs, still making less, but you're considered employed. And this is very confusing when you look at the surface, and everyone who's sleeping just says, oh, look, the unemployment's going down. This is great. Everything's getting better in the country. It's fantastic. And this is what they want you to believe. Those people who are sleeping really do believe that the economy is getting better. And basically, the same goes with the housing market. The housing market is being controlled by the Fed, just like the stock market, just like the Treasury bond market. Basically, the Fed is the complete market. And with interest rates going up, less people who can barely afford a home right now because they need to go to a no down payment type of loan just to get into a house really have no business buying a home. Because as soon as interest rates go up, they're kicked out of the market. So this housing recovery, we're seeing a decline in mortgage applications. Interest rates are starting to inch up. More people are being kicked out of the housing market, and the hedge funds and investors that were buying the homes, trying to inflate the bubble, are unloading their homes right now. So this whole housing market is fake and phony. Now, Goldman must have received a note under the table from the Fed saying that QE tapering likely in September, because of all the good news that we're receiving, that the unemployment is holding steady and should be going down. The housing market looks good. The economy looks like it's bouncing back. And you really have to start thinking about this. How can this possibly happen with the amount of people unemployed, the amount of people underemployed, disposable income going down, mortgage interest rates moving up, mortgage applications on the decline, manufacturing non-existent because most of the manufacturing has been pushed off to China, India, and other countries. So we've lost almost all our manufacturing. Major corporations are planning to lay off, like IBM, and we discussed this in the other episode. They're going to be laying off. Retail stores back in February, March have released that they are closing stores and getting rid of people. Because when you close a store, where do you put all these people? And basically, all of this cannot make an economy move in the right direction. It makes no sense what is going on. So basically, what is Goldman trying to tell us? Well, they told us quite a bit. They told us last time, right before that huge smackdown of gold, around $200 back in April, they told us they were bearish on gold. Now, how did they know this? I mean, come on. Let's be realistic. And then after the smackdown was over, they were no longer bearish on gold. I mean, it's just amazing to me. They just, they looked in their crystal ball and they just, for that, the day before or 2 days before, they just knew. They also told us back in 2006, 2007 that the subprime mortgage-backed securities were the best thing since sliced bread. In the meantime, they were betting against them. Now they're telling us that the economy is doing so well that the Fed will be tapering in September. Basically, what are we seeing now? More people are going to flock out of bonds. More people are going to get out of gold because you have to remember those who are sleeping are hearing that the economy is getting better. So what do I need gold for? Let's get rid of it. Why the Fed will no longer fund the Treasury bond market. So those savvy investors will start getting out of the Treasury bond market. And basically, where does the Fed want everyone to go? A couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago by now, they dared people to get into the stock market. That is the place they want everyone to go. They have been trying to drive more and more people into the stock market to keep this whole entire illusion going because they want everyone looking at the market. So what we're going to see is gold go down, people leaving the Treasury bond, market, and the stock market, they're going to do their best. The Fed is going to do is what they can to keep it pumped up as long as they can. They are looks like they are preparing for something to happen around the fall time with this tapering. Do I think they personally will taper? No, but I think something else is happening in the background. Goldman just doesn't come out and tell you this. It's always the opposite of what's going to happen. If they're telling you the economy is good, it's really bad. If they're going to tell you he's going to taper, they're not going to taper. Something else is going on. Something else is lurking behind doors. And from everything that we see that's going on, and we look at around the world, we look at what's going on, things are not going right now. In Syria, in Egypt, with the NSA spying, more things are being ramped up, and I believe things are kind of spiraling out of control for the government, the Fed. I mean, all central banks are printing as much as they can. Europe is in a deep crisis. Unemployment is at its highest it's ever been, and it's continually going higher. Greece, Portugal, Spain, Cyprus, I mean, everyone in these European countries are struggling. We saw this happen in 1929 during the Great Depression, where Europe was struggling. You looked over at America, stock market hitting all-time highs, but the economy, there was a disconnect. There were breadlines. There were people looking for work, even though the stock market was at all-time highs. Okay, let's move on here. Now, Bolivia is threatening to shut down the U.S. embassies, and basically this comes about because the U.S. downed the Bolivian president's plane because they thought Snowden was on there, and basically the U.S. government is acting like a bully, and I don't know if they really had the jurisdiction to board the president of Bolivia's plane. It was almost like our president in the United States flying over to another country, and they decided to board the plane. Basically, you know, it's just not allowed, and it just shows disrespect. And basically, the Bolivian president and the Latino nations in South America are very angry and all sticking together and threatening to close the U.S. embassy, saying they do not need the U.S. in their country. Now, what's going on in Egypt, which this to me is very strange, because whenever the mainstream media continually reports on something nonstop, even through the 4th of July, about Egypt and the protests, to me, they are distracting everyone from something else that's going on. Plus, the U.S. government and the central bankers are kind of put into a corner, let's say, because Morsi was thrown out. They're trying to keep the puppet government intact so they do not stop using the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, and they want the central bank to stay in Egypt. And before, the U.S. government had control over Egypt with Morsi there and the puppet government there. Now that he is out, they are trying to distract and to cause problems by having plants or something there to start two sides fighting against each other. Now, the military is denying that they fired on anyone in Egypt. Now, you have to remember, During this revolution, during this time period, all these people marched. There were hundreds of thousands of people marching. The military did not fire one bullet. The military removed Morsi. Now, all of a sudden, and the military is denying this, there were gunshots and there's trouble being made. And this is what the government's central bankers do. They create distractions. They make people take sides. They make things crazy there so they can step in. It's the same thing that's going on in Syria, but what I find strange is you see Egypt on CNN, you see Egypt on Fox, you don't see anything about Syria. How come they didn't cover the revolution like they did in Egypt? Because Syria really doesn't have a revolution, because those are paid mercenaries, and they are basically not even Syrian. Egypt is having a real revolution, and the United States, the government, is getting worried. And they need to create these distractions. They need to create confusion. And basically, if it looks like they're making the case where the U.S. will step in to control the situation. And this is, if yesterday I remarked about what President Obama said about that he's concerned, and they've already put sanctions there. They stopped the funding, and you can see they are getting prepped to, I'm going to use quotes now, help Egypt, which they're really not doing. They're just maintaining and controlling and making sure that the U.S. reserve currency and the central bank stays intact in Egypt. Now, I find, since this happened in Egypt, Turkey now, which is a strategic location for the U.S. government because it's near China, it's near Russia, it's near the Middle East, and it's a strategic location. There's a central bank there. Turkey uses the dollar as the reserve currency, and we basically, I should say, the U.S. government controls Turkey. Now, Turkey is planning to create a legal document that reforms their Article 35 to prevent coups. Now, I find this very interesting that, first of all, how do you prevent a coup? By putting something in a document. I mean, it's almost like in any country, Australia, England, Spain, America, they put in a document that says, okay, this is the law, no coups allowed. Well, we have other laws that says no killing, no robbing, but people still do it. So I don't even know how this helps, but if we use common sense, if the people rise up, like you saw in Egypt, and all the people come together, no document in the world is going to stop these people. I don't care what you have written down there. But again, this is surface fluff to try to stop people before, like, oh, no, it's a document, we can't do it now. But again, those people who are unhappy and those people who are going to stage protests aren't going to care about this document. But it's very interesting that Turkey is taking this stance. Egypt is having this now problem with clashes and people dying now. And this is exactly what the central bankers like. And this is exactly what they're trying to do, is put people on either side and fight so the government can the U.S. government can step in and take control and help them out here, and basically to maintain what they have over there. Now, around the world, we know that World War III is definitely on the horizon. We see the shipment of weapons that was supposedly for a drill to Jordan, and now those weapons are staying in Jordan. We see other things going on around the world. In California, there were naval drills with Japan and other countries on how to, take over an island. We also saw Russia and China have naval drills in the Sea of Japan, and we saw other Russian and Iran drills going on. And basically now we see the Pentagon is strengthening naval forces in the Gulf. The U.S. Navy has deployed 3 additional coastal patrol ships to its 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, bolstering America's presence in the strategic Gulf, officials said. Basically, everyone is taking sides, everyone is getting prepared, and basically what we're going to see is all hell break loose when the time comes. Okay, let's move on here. Now, Russian and Canadian forces are going to keep security in the U.S. in case of an emergency or a disaster or martial law. Now, I put on this page the Canada-U.S. Defense Relationship. This is a document where it allows Canadian forces to enter the U.S. to maintain control. And now Russia has also signed this same type of document where they will have troops within the United States to maintain control. And then I started to think, why would they need to do this at this point in time? Well, the central bankers, the government, the elite, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they know the economic collapse is coming. They know this. They know it for a fact. They know for a fact to control the American people, they need to get the guns away from the people. They need to control the flow of information, which is the internet. They already have control of mainstream media. That's not a problem. But the control of the internet still remains to be a problem. They also know that military in the United States will have a problem firing on its own people. Now, if they are trying to cover this up with a war in the Middle East, with Syria, with Iran and China, and then they know Russia will get involved, why would they sign this and have Russia troops here if we would be in a war in the Middle East? Because if something happens in Syria, Russia is going to back them, China is going to back them, and Russia and China will back Iran also. This is, to me, an insurance policy. Basically, if the government and the central bankers cannot get this war going, and the collapse starts to happen and they can't control it, just like in 2008, it just, one little black swan, one little event just throws everything off, and everything crashes here in the United States, then in Europe, then across the world. They need to maintain control. Now, you have to remember, they weren't able to get the war started. So who do people blame? They blame the government. So this, to me, seems like it's an insurance policy to bring in Canadian and Russian troops to maintain control during this period. Now, if they can get the war going, they won't need this. But if you notice, none of this is broadcasted on the mainstream media. None of this is anywhere you see, the news. This is all behind the scenes stuff, and no one will know about it unless it's needed to be used. The government has been planning to use the cyber attack as the main event. They're hoping they can pull this off and get us into war with Syria, Iran, China, and get all the countries into war to cover this great collapse up. But if they can't, they need a backup plan. And I think this is what this is. This is their backup plan if all else fails, and all of a sudden there is some type of an event that they didn't expect, and everything comes crumbling down ahead of time. Because you have to remember, Russia, China, they have been basically hoarding huge amounts of gold. The United States and Europe is on a fiat-based system completely. When it collapses here, people are going to be shocked. They won't know what is happening. I don't think the government can depend on the armed forces here. That's why DHS will be controlling these foreign troops, and they will report right to Janet Napolitano. And this is their insurance policy for this collapse. Okay, let's move on here. Now, thousands have protested about the NSA spying across the U.S. on the 4th of July. And again, you did not see any of this on the mainstream media. You didn't see anything about protests. They kept everything on Egypt, basically distracting you from what's happening here. Because if you look around, most Americans, a majority of them who are awake, do not like this spying that the NSA is doing and what the government is doing. And these protests went in all these cities: New York, Washington, Los Angeles, Chicago, Boston, Seattle, Memphis, Miami, London, and it happened all over the place. But basically, it was not televised, it was not reported on, and no one knows anything about it. Now, the DHS has been trained Israeli style, and they've been working with local law enforcement, making these local law enforcement federalized, where they're no longer local. They all report to the DHS. And basically, the DHS is, as this article says, totally militarization of police, military tactics, utter disrespect for civil law, disrespect for the Constitution, disrespect for civil liberties, freedom of speech, and the unbridled growth of centralized power under unlimited corruption. And basically, they've been training, and every police department in the United States is being trained by DHS on how to handle what is coming. And we've seen this in LA. We've seen these military drills in Miami, in Houston, and in New York. They've been working with the New York City Police Department and other police departments, and basically they are being trained and being shown how to use heavy weapons, illegal surveillance, and learning how to talk to people, avoid the press. And this is basically what's going on, because you have to remember, DHS has not been created to protect the American people from terrorists. Because if you go to their website and you look at their terrorist alert system, it never says anything. They are put into place to work with local law enforcement, to show them how to use specialized tactics to deal with people when the collapse comes. And they will oversee everything. They are to control the American people before, during, and after the collapse. That's what they are put into power for. That is it. Okay, let's move on here. Now, the FBI and Seattle authorities were investigating a Nevada man who was arrested after he was spotted on the University of Washington campus in a stolen truck carrying multiple explosive devices, stolen firearms, and body armor, police said on Thursday. So basically, this guy was carrying around Molotov cocktails, he had body armor, he had explosives, and the FBI and the Seattle authorities caught him. And he also had stolen weapons, And basically, to me, this is the beginning of the propaganda of the next false flag of a domestic terrorist, homegrown militant, and they're already showing everyone that they have stopped someone, and look how great we are, and we can see more of these type of people. Now, this past 4th of July, we had a couple false flags. The march on all state capitals, the toy gun march, the NSA protest, and the Fed came out with the 4th of July firework bomb warning, and none of it turned out to be anything. We still have false flag events coming up, and these are the New York City chemical drill in the New York City subway system, where they're going to release gas into the subway system. We also see many different biological drills going on across the country. We also have a warning of a dirty bomb type of attack that they've been talking about. We have the Zimmerman race riot, potential false flag, and we have July 18th, the cyber simulation. And there's probably many, many other drills that are taking place or other events. We don't know which one. Again, these are all potential false flags. We don't know what they're going to do. But what we do know is that they need to get certain things into place as fast as they can. And according to Joe Biden and John Kerry, they were talking and saying that they will have the gun bill legislation signed by August. So that makes you think that some type of false flag involving guns will and shootings will appear. And they do have the gun bill and UN armed treaty pending in the Senate. Something with cyber attacks will come about because they have the CISPA bill pending in the Senate. And they also have Syria and now Egypt, where they need to get this war started. It's not going well in Syria. No one's believing. None of the American people in Congress are really care. Congress actually wants to stop the president and the Obama administration from supplying weapons to Syria, so they introduced a bill. And basically, they need to do something to push their agenda forward, and they are running out of time, and they've been trying for quite a while, and I believe that things are getting so bad that they are limited in the amount of time that they have, because anything can trigger this entire thing and collapse the entire economy at any time. So with that in mind, everyone should be prepared and ready for this. I want to thank everyone for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot, everyone.